Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wolfpacker Show. My name's Ethan McDowell. I am here with Noah Fleischman. We are back for our weekly preview episode, and we are here to talk all about NC State versus Northern Illinois. The Pack is back at home. It has been a competitive week of practice. Positions are up for grabs, folks. Roles are up for grabs. Dave Doran made it very clear this week that there is going to be a ton of competition in practice this week, and we could see some significant changes to how the Pack is running things this season. They hadn't put out a depth chart this week, so we have no idea what those changes will be, which makes it exciting. NC State, for the second time in 3 weeks here, has a chance to bounce back, show some improvement against a Group of 5 program. Now, Northern Illinois isn't your typical Group of 5 program. They are coming off a major upset over Notre Dame a few weeks ago. The Irish were ranked number 5 at the time. The Huskies went into South Bend and pulled off a win thanks to a very strong defensive effort and some timely playmaking from its stars. So this is a team that's going to challenge the Pack. We're going to dive into just how they are going to test NC State. But before we do that, I want to just point out that we're both writers for the Wolfpacker.com. That's NC State's site on the On3 network, the fastest growing college football, recruiting, basketball website out there. Encourage you guys to all go check out the Wolfpacker.com. We've got previews for this game. We've got recruiting scoops. We've got basketball news and basketball features up on the website because it's almost that time of year too. We've got it all covered over there, so go check it out right now. If you sign up for a premium subscription, you'll get access to our message board, our those same recruiting scoops and a team analysis. It's a great deal over on the Wolfpacker.com, and please go check it out. Again, that is the Wolfpacker.com. All right, Noah, let's preview this game, week 5 for NC State. Seems like a lot of teams have had a bye week by now. There's a lot of early buys this week because this college football schedule now accounts for 2 bye weeks per team. That's not the case for NC State. We still have about a month until NC State will have a bye week. So NC State trudges along, now standing 2-2 on the season. Northern Illinois is 2-1, having lost to Buffalo in overtime last week. I want to hear your initial thoughts on Northern Illinois. What do you think they do well? And why should Pack fans maybe be a little bit worried about this game? Because I forgot to point out at the top of the show, but this game opened up at NC State was favored by 11.5 points, and that line is down to 6.5 now. And there's a reason for that, right, Noah?
There is, and it's because NC State struggled to defend the run. We talk about not having a bye week. A bye week would have been really, really helpful going into this game because NC State's run defense has been not great this year as a whole. They held up well against Louisiana Tech, only gave up 43 rushing yards. Good showing against an FBS team, but in their 2 games against Power 5 opponents that they played this year, it's not gone well at all. And now they're playing a team. Yes, it's from the MAC, but Northern Illinois, its brand of football is smash mouth, run the ball through your throat football. This is not a team that's given up a sack in 17 games. They don't drop back to pass. This is a team that runs the ball. And when they do pass, it's out quick. It's basically a running kind of a play. They do a lot of screens, a lot of play action, different things like that. But overall, Ethan, this is a game where if they don't defend the run at a high level, which we haven't really seen that much this year, Northern Illinois will make this a game. And they will. I mean, that's just a fact of the matter. And NC State's talked about all week, we're working on cleaning up the run defense, working up the run fit, working on defense as a whole. But if they don't, Ontario Brown is going to make it a long day. He ran for 99 yards at Notre Dame. This is a guy who ran for 1,200 yards a year ago. One of the best running backs in the MAC is coming to Raleigh and wants to get a 100-yard game. And if he does, Northern Illinois will be firmly in this game.
Yeah, I mean, their offense starts and doesn't end, but it's certainly Ontario Brown is a elite running back at the Group of 5 level, right? Someone that's stuck with Northern Illinois for all 4 years of his college career, and has been very, very productive. You mentioned the 1,200 yards last year, and this year he is off to an electric start. Through the past 2 weeks, man, he's forced 16 missed tackles. Like, he is, for a team that has struggled to tackle consistently, instead has missed 20 tackling attempts against Tennessee and Clemson. It's cause for concern for the Wolfpack because Brown is going to run through weak tackle attempts. NC State needs to come at him with a physical mentality. He, like you said, he has 241 rushing yards so far this year. And, he wasn't that big of a factor in the passing game in past years. Northern Illinois is really using him as a receiver so far this year. Against Notre Dame, he caught 2 passes for 126 yards and a touchdown. He was a playmaker in the receiving game as well. And that's not like they're not lining him like up in the slot or anything. They're just sending him on right side of the backfield and letting him make plays that way. That's going to test NC State's linebackers in coverage, something that they've done a pretty solid job at so far this year. Especially Devon Betty has put up some solid numbers in pass coverage, but they're going to be really tested this year. And you combine that with their senior tight end Grayson Barnes. He is their most targeted receiver, and Ontario Brown is tied for second. And so a lot of their targets are coming from not receivers, running backs, and tight ends. So that's going to be something that NC State's going to have to really focus on defending it. Like I said, it's going to put a lot of stress on the linebackers. How well do they hold up in coverage while also accounting for a physical run game? You mentioned play action. They run play action on over 40% of their dropbacks. So everything about this offense starts with the rushing attack. And based on NC State's rushing struggles that they've showed on tape so far this year, I fully expect Northern Illinois to come in and try to punch NC State in the mouth in this game. And now the question is, how do they respond? And that's kind of the theme of the week. How does NC State respond? For the second time this year, we are asking that question, Noah. And but for the first time, it sounds like there's going to be noticeable changes to maybe the personnel that's out on the field, how snaps are distributed. What kind of is your expectation for how things could shift in that respect? Is there anyone you're going to be looking to maybe see a little more out of this week?
Yeah, I'd imagine most of these changes are going to come on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, at Clemson, the offense was not the problem. Yes, they didn't score much, but they also didn't have time to get going. They, in a blink of an eye, were down 28-0. This is all on the defense mostly, and then Dave Norman talked about it after the game. He's talked about it Monday. I think we're going to see some changes, and I think we'll see it in the secondary. I think we'll see possibly a linebacker. If anything, linebacker will have a rotation this week, and I think that's a fact. I think if we see some missed tackles out of the trio, we'll see, a guy like Kamal Bonner, Calvin McBride, Jalen Parker even come in and be a rotational guy. They've got depth at that position. We haven't seen it too much this year. Jalen Parker did play a lot against Western Carolina when Caden Fordham went out with targeting. But we'll see. I think we'll see a good number of those guys. The secondary, Devon Marshall has really stood out. He's gotten a lot of praise the last few weeks. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw him find his way in at corner, whether it's at outside corner or nickel. I could see either one. Dave DeWarne's really been talking this week about setting the edge. And he talked about, yes, it's the linebackers and the defensive line need to do it, but the secondary needs to too. And I think he really wasn't pleased with how the safeties and the nickels really set the edge at Clemson. So if he wants to send a message, we'll see us change at safety or nickel. I'm not sure if we will, but if we do, I think the most common theme you could do is you could move Jahad Carter from nickel to safety. You could either move Brandon Cisse to nickel. He's comfortable playing in the slot. Or you put Devon Marshall there, who was billed as a nickel recruit coming into NC State. So they've got options in the secondary, but I definitely think we will see some changes. And if anything, a lot of guys might be playing on rotation and figuring out what works. And that might be the thing. You give everyone snaps and see who performs well and who doesn't. And it might be one of those things where they commit to a rotation to a point, and if one guy is outperforming the other, they'll just stick with him and roll with him, not only in this game, but down the stretch as we head into the, this 3-game homestand they're on. So it'll be important. Offense, we'll see some changes. Anthony Belton's not going to start at tackle, so we will likely see Timothy McKay slide to tackle and see Val Erickson most likely at guard to start the game. Not sure how long that will last. Is it one series? Is it a quarter? Is it a half? Unsure. Dave DeWarne hasn't talked about it, but at least to start the game, I'm pretty sure the offensive line is going to look like that.
Yeah, I agree. And you mentioned it, not really expecting that many changes offensively. I mean, maybe the running back carry distribution gets, maybe we see a little more Kendrick Raphael than we have in the past. He's had back-to-back really solid games. But I thought Jordan Waters, he only carried the ball 7 times, but he was averaging 5 yards per carry. I thought he had a solid day against Clemson in his limited workload. I think he's gotten better over the past couple of weeks, and I'm not given up hope on him being a productive playmaker as the season goes on, as NC State's run blocking seems to be taking steps forward as we progress through the season here. It's all about the defense, man. It's just all about what we're going to see defensively. Before the season, Tony Gibson told me in an interview that he saw McBride and Bonner playing 20 to 30 snaps a game. That has not happened this year. Maybe we'll start to see that a little bit more. Maybe we'll see a little bit more of a true rotation at outside linebacker, because the fact of the matter is NC State's linebackers just aren't making the plays that NC State is accustomed to its linebackers making plays. It's just like I think Fordham and Betty have a combined 5 quarterback pressures. Sean Brown has 5, I believe. That's 10 quarterback pressures across 4 games for your linebacker core. And that's just not going to get the job done in Tony Gibson's 3-3-5 defense, right? You need the linebackers to be more disruptive than that. The tackles for loss numbers are way down. NC State is second to last in the ACC in sacks with 16. That is a category that the Pack is used to being towards the top. So something has to change there. And I think maybe putting in Bonner and McBride for a few more snaps, 2 young linebackers that, sure, they might not have the experience or, just the experience snaps on the field that Devon Betty or Sean Brown have, but they are super athletic, promising, like former safety recruits that could come in and be playmakers and, I don't know, maybe cause a little more disruption for the Pack. I think against Northern Illinois, you're just going to see the NC State try stuff. I will say I'm not going to necessarily expect a ton of changes to the starting lineup. I think you made a good point with potentially something changing at nickel. I could totally see that. But I think overall the starting spots will be somewhat similar for this game defensively, but we're just going to see a lot more of a rotation. And I think tryout's the wrong word, but maybe an audition for these players in larger roles to, seize the moment, show off what they've been proven in practice to earn, these backup roles and maybe emerge into the spotlight in a game and earn more game snaps as the season goes on. And then maybe as the season goes on, we see players take over starting spots as they continue to develop. But so I would say if you see the same starting defense for the most part run out there for the first play against Northern Illinois, don't get upset, Wolfpack fans. First of all, I think we'll just see more of a rotation and we'll see how things go from there. I do think things are going to be different this week. And usually, we'll get into predictions later, but usually when the Pack has its back against the wall, as much as it does right now, usually this program responds. Usually when there's, a week of practice that's described as highly competitive and, Doran's calling out players to respond. Usually the culture of this team is usually those players do step up. That's not a guarantee it's going to happen this year, but just based off of all the recent history we do have, seems to indicate that we'll probably see some sort of positive response from the Pack defense. But we'll see. When you're looking at this game, Noah, what's one thing that if NC State fails to do, you could see Northern Illinois winning? Like if they don't fix this that they showed against Clemson, or they don't fix that they showed against Tennessee, or they don't continue a positive trend that we've seen so far, what do you think could put this game at risk for the Wolfpack?
Obviously, the run defense is a big key, so I'm going to avoid that one. We've talked about it. I'm going to pick something new. We've talked about the run defense. If that goes problem, like this game is going to be ugly, and that's just a fact.
Agreed.
I mean, I think it's something that's positive that NC State's done well. I think it's just CJ Bailey's continued growth at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if he keeps taking steps forward, which he has in the last 2 appearances that we've seen from him, I think that's really good. We don't want to see him regress. He's taking care of the football for the most part. He has thrown 2 picks. The second one at Clemson, the one at Clemson, I don't really think is too much really to worry about. He was pressing, they're down. He's trying to make plays. It is what it is. He also fumbled the ball, but he didn't see the guy coming, and it hit hard in the backfield. It is what it is. I think we see him make a step forward this week. Would be really good to see. It's his second career start, first at home. He'll be comfortable. He handled the start well last week. I'm not worried about that. I'm just more worried about him finding rhythm again and finding those outside receivers. NC State has had 120 targets this year. 61 of them have gone to either Kevin Concepcion or Justin Jolie. Incorporating other guys might be evident this week, and we'll see what happens. But outside receivers and CJ Bailey's, continued growth, those two things happen. NC State's got a really good chance to not only win this game, but win by multiple scores, which I think is what would be really good for their own confidence going into the game, knowing they need to rebound and be able to handle a team instead of winning by comeback fashion, which they've done in both of their wins against lesser opponents.
Yeah, I agree. That's going to be huge. I mean, I think it's clear CJ has it. He has that thing that's going to make him a very, very good quarterback at the college level. The one thing you mentioned, regression, and I think stats-wise, it's possible we could see regression over the next couple weeks. I don't think it's regression in his quality of play. I think it's simply that he has games of tape out there, right? Teams are going to know how to defend him a little more. We saw that a little bit with MJ Morris when he took on a starting role 2 years ago. So once he played a little bit more, teams were kind of able to, you actually have a scouting report on the guy instead of just going off of high school tape or what limited snaps you had seen before that. So I think, it's going to be how does CJ respond to that when the defense is more tailored to stopping his skill set and defending him. So far, everything he's shown indicates that he's going to be able to respond to that. He's going to be able to respond well because he has just been really, really solid so far this year. It is noteworthy that in its past two games against Notre Dame and Buffalo, Northern Illinois has not allowed more than 160 passing yards to a quarterback. So they are kind of built to shut down the passing game. They have a good, good set of pass rushers. Their best defensive player has actually missed the first few games of this season, and I don't think he was on the depth chart for this week. So they might be missing their top defensive lineman, but they have a good secondary and still have some good pass rushers that could disrupt NC State's passing game. And does that put more, emphasis on the rushing game? Can NC State establish enough of a rushing game to, keep all of the pressure off of Bailey? We'll see. They've done a really good job. There's not been a game so far this year that the leading rusher in a game that NIU has played has not been Ontario Brown, right? So they're not giving up much rushing yards either. I think they're just a really solid team on both sides of the ball. And I mean, you saw that against Notre Dame. My key for the game, though, is about the slow starts, man. These slow starts have killed the Pack so far this year. They got away with it against Western Carolina and Louisiana Tech. Those are teams that, quite frankly, are not good enough to make NC State consistently pay for their mistakes, right? Like you have a longer leash when you're playing, a bad FBS team in Louisiana Tech and an FCS team in Western Carolina. Obviously, the slow starts really hurt the Pack against Clemson. And it certainly didn't help against Tennessee either, although I think that was probably their best start of the game. It more so unraveled in the second quarter. But so far this season, Noah, do you know what NC State's averaging points per game in the first quarter this year? 2.5.
It's not pretty.
2.5. They are not scoring to open these games, and they're digging themselves into a hole. The most obvious example of that was the Clemson game when they fell behind 28-0. They just, I think, for almost like their own morale, they just need to come out and show that they can, beat a team right off the, first kickoff of the game. They've shown they can finish strong. They need to start strong against Northern Illinois because the Huskies have dominated time of possession so far this season. They've possessed the ball for 13 more minutes than Buffalo last week. Against Notre Dame, they possessed the ball for 9 more minutes of game time. That they run the ball so much and so effectively that they're able to just hold on to possession for most of the game if they want to do that. Can NC State's offense respond by having extended possessions and limiting 3-and-outs, limiting turnovers, limiting these sudden changes that could wear the defense down by the end of the game? That is a legitimate concern. I don't care that this is a MAC team. I don't care this is a group of 5 team. This team has the ability to wear NC State down because they have that amount of talent up front. And they just don't make many mistakes. Like their quarterback, he has thrown one interception this year, and like you said, he has not taken a sack. And he's going to be going against an NC State defense that has not sacked the quarterback this year. So I think, quite frankly, this is a bad matchup for NC State. I think when you're looking for just a get right game, Northern Illinois is not the type of team you want to be playing. I think Northern Illinois is going to really challenge NC State in this game. And I think they could make things difficult for the Pack on both sides of the ball, just like they did with Notre Dame. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting game. I think it'll be a close one for sure. I thought, when the first betting line came out at 11.5, I was shocked. And then, the market kind of corrected it. I think it's going to be a close one. It's going to be a competitive one. And it's going to be just interesting to see how this iteration of the Wolfpack responds to major adversity. We've seen it each of the past 2 years. We've seen the impressive responses. Can the Pack do that for a third consecutive season? I'm certainly not counting them out. I think it's certainly possible that they turn things around from here. But Northern Illinois is not your typical Group of 5 game, not your typical MAC opponent. They could absolutely beat NC State if the Pack does not come in and execute better than it has so far this year. I think that's a good segue into predictions. Noah, what do you think?
I think so.
Let's talk about what we're actually expecting from this game. Every week, we like to predict the stat leaders in rushing, receiving, and tackling, kind of launch little conversations off of that, and then we'll share our final score predictions. Let's start with the rushing attack. Each of the past 2 weeks, actually, Kendrick Raphael has led the team in rushing. That was mostly in the second half against Clemson, but he broke off some big runs, broke a few tackles. He is, I think, so far this year, NC State's most elusive rushing back, toughest running back to bring down so far this season. What have you seen out of Kendrick that you've liked over the past couple weeks? And going off of that, who do you see leading the team in rushing?
Yeah, I really like Kendrick, and I think he's kind of a guy that is working his way into being the number one running back. He was for most of the year last year, just based on what they had in the tank. But this is a guy that's got 182 yards on 26 carries. Jordan Waters is 191 on 44 carries. So he's done it in basically half the amount of time that Jordan Waters has. Raphael leads the team with 7 yards a carry. He's kind of, solidified himself as that number 2 back, but I think he's really pushing for that number 1 spot at the moment. He also has a team best 5 broken tackles at running back while getting 10, 9 first downs. Waters does have 10 first downs this year. So, and Raphael, last thing on him is he's been hit the line just 9 times this year. Waters has been hit the line 26 times. So even if you take the same sample size, it's still he's getting hit the line less. He's finding holes and going through them, and I think that's really important. So I think, he's the guy that will lead them in rushing again, and this could be the game where he solidifies himself as that number 1 running back. Obviously, Jordan Waters will get the carries. They brought him in for a reason. But Kendrick has just looked more consistent. Yes, Waters has the talent and all that, but I think that through these last 2 weeks, when things haven't been consistent for NC State's offense, he's been the one that's the most consistent.
Like I said earlier in the show, I'm not giving up on Jordan. I'm picking Jordan to lead the team in rushing. I think that it's been a slow start, but the talent is there. The proven production is there. And I think NC State's run blocking has improved. He had a nice 20-plus yard run that got wiped out by a holding penalty against Clemson. So, if they just need to cut down on the penalties. And I think it's 2 weeks in a row that Jordan Waters has had a nice run wiped out by a holding call. So I think he still has the potential. I think he still has the ability to hit home runs. And I think he could lead the Pack in rushing this weekend. I think it could be, if you don't want to count, the second half against Western Carolina as his breakout game, I think this could be, his breakout game that shows he can be, not only the home run hitter that he showed against the Catamounts, but maybe he can be the consistent 4 and 5 yards per carry type of running back that keeps NC State ahead of the chains, that keeps this offense in situations that it likes to operate in. And if that happens, man, I think it changes. It certainly raises the ceiling and the floor for this offense if they can just find consistent rushing that gets them that 4 to 5 yards of carry and keeps the Pack ahead of the sticks. So if either Kendrick Raphael or Jordan Waters breaks out and continues to show that consistency, I think that changes the outlook of this season for the Pack, quite frankly. Let's talk about receiving. You talked about it earlier in the show, just the wild target distribution so far this season that is primarily focused on KC and Justin Jolie. They've both been really, really solid this year. Jolie, I think, has been, quite frankly, phenomenal. I think he has been really, really good, just, as advertised coming in from UConn. KC, it's been a tough couple weeks for him. Defenses are really, really keying in on him. And what I just think we need to see, Noah, is if they're going to be keying on, the superstar sophomore, they need to find the ways to get these outside receivers the ball more frequently, because you have talented players like Noah Rogers, Dakari Collins, and Wesley Grimes out on the outside, not to mention the two freshmen. And you're just not seeing, the targets go in their direction as much. Are you picking one of the inside guys to lead the Pack in receiving, or is this the day they get the downfield passing game going with those outside guys?
I'm going to talk the outside guys into, I guess, just put it out there and see if it comes true. I mean, when you look at these numbers, it's kind of wild. Noah Rogers has run 61 routes at NC State and only has 12 targets. Just 12 targets. That doesn't even, count the fact that he's got 8 receptions for 100 yards. That's just 12 targets on 61 routes. He's running a lot. I think they need to find a way to get the ball downfield. So I'm going to pick Noah Rogers to have a breakout game. It's not just him with the outside receivers having that problem. Dakari Collins has 11 targets on 60 routes. Terrell Anderson has 10 on 27 routes. He's pretty efficient when he's on the field. Yeah. And then Wesley Grimes has 9 targets on 53 routes. So most of the outside receivers aren't getting much run. Terrell's numbers, I think, are boosted a little bit by the end of Clemson. That drive at the end of the game kind of helped him. He scored his first career touchdown. But overall, I'm going to go with Noah Rogers and say they get the outside guys going, because you definitely know Northern Illinois is going to circle number 10 and number 15 and say, you know what? Make an outside receiver beat us, because they haven't yet. And I think that might be a thing that Northern Illinois' defense kind of says. Make them beat you. And if they do, great. If not, then their thing will work.
Does that prediction, are you predicting that they're going to get the downfield passing game going? Are we going to see more vertical passing to Noah Rogers? Or do you think that'll be the product of them scheming up more short intermediate routes for him?
I think it'd be a little bit of both, because when you look at CJ Bailey's passing chart, he hasn't gone downfield much. He's only gone down 20 yards or more 4 times. He does have a pick at Clemson. He does have 1 completion. Most of it's within 19 yards and in. I think we could see some intermediate passing, but I also think that Robert and I is going to try to take the top off on a defense and prove that CJ Bailey can do it. He's got the arm. He can get the ball downfield. That's not the problem. It's kind of just getting guys open, making the plays work. If NC State can do that, that'd be great. But if they jump out to a lead somehow, big lead, then we won't see them push the ball as much. When you have the lead, you're going to run the ball, you're going to run the clock. So we'll see what happens. But I do think early in the game, we'll see them try to scheme up some of these guys to go downfield. Maybe it's a 15, 18-yard pass, but that's still going to be, a step forward in the passing game, which has been a lot of 10 yards or less, or even behind the line. We've seen a lot of behind-the-line passing this year. I want to see them kind of go down the field a little bit.
I think I'm going to predict that KC gets back to being KC. I think he'll just have, a good day. They'll find ways to just get him the ball a little more downfield. I believe Coach Doran said that they had him open against Clemson on a deep route, but they took a sack on the play. So maybe against Northern Illinois, they can find him deep. He's, the most talented player on the team. So I'm going to pick him to lead the team in receiving. Not exactly a bold prediction, but I think he'll get back to, this was the only time a team kept him below 50 receiving yards in consecutive games since the first 2 games of his career. So just betting the averages here. I think we're going to see some positive progression to the mean. And so I'll go with KC. Last prediction, tackling. This is kind of an interesting one with how much we've talked about a potential linebacker rotation, potential changes at safety and nickel. So who's going to lead the team in tackling, if you had to guess, Noah?
Caden Fordham, because I think he's the only linebacker that won't be in a rotation this week. I mean, he's the Mike linebacker that has the radio in his helmet. Kind of hard to rotate the radio. You can. You have to really be intentional about it. But I think Caden Fordham does it. I think he is going to kind of rise to the occasion, rise to the call that Dave Doran is setting if they need to be more physical, run-stopping team. And I think he's the guy that takes it to his heart. I mean, we talked to him after the game. He blamed himself for a lot of the mistakes that happened at Clemson. I think he's going to take it this week really, really hard and go out there and prove that that was a fluke and that he can get it corrected in a week. He's kind of, Dave Doran has described him as a Peyton Wilson kind of guy with effort. And I think if he is, we'll see that this week against Northern Illinois. So give me Caden Fordham. I'll even call my shot 12 or more tackles from Caden Fordham this weekend.
Wow. All right. I like it. He's going to run the ball a lot. He's going to have opportunities. NC State just has to stay in its gaps. And going off of that, I think we're actually going to see a big tackle game from Donovan Kaufman. I think, quite frankly, that Northern Illinois' rushing attack is good enough where they're going to reach the second level a lot. And Donovan Kaufman's going to have to clean up a lot of those plays. If he is not up there in tackles, something went wrong with filling gaps and just planning their assignments, because I think, the tape's out there that if you get to the second level against NC State, you can break off a big play. And I think Donovan Kaufman will answer that challenge, and he's going to make some big stops. And maybe, I think you have the right pick there. I think Caden Fordham should be the favorite to lead the team in tackles, but I could also see Donovan Kaufman getting in there as well if Northern Illinois' rushing offense does what I think it's going to do to NC State. All right, time for one last prediction, and then we're going to wrap up today's show. Final scores, Noah. How do you think this game's going to end up for the Pack?
I think the Pack finds a way to get it done. They find a way to ride the ship, and I go 30-17. NC State pulls away in the fourth quarter.
Multiple scores. All right. I think this is going to be an ugly game. I think it is going to be one where NC State is going to have to grind this one out. I think Northern Illinois is going to try to take the air out of the ball, build off these long possessions. And like I've said multiple times this year, they have the talent to do that. I think they're going to test NC State's linebackers in coverage. And that's something that we just haven't seen a lot of this season. So we'll see how that plays out for them. And based on everything we have seen from the rushing defense, I think Ontario Brown will have a good day. So I still have NC State winning. I think at the end of the day, there's too much of a track record of this program responding from adversity to count the team out against a group of 5 opponent that they're certainly not going to be taking lightly. So I picked the Pack 27-24. And I think it's going to be a tough one. Kanoa Vineset hits a last-minute field goal, puts the Pack over the top, and they leave Carter Finley Stadium with a critical third win to wrap up the non-conference schedule. All right, folks, that's it for today's show. We appreciate you all joining for another episode of the Wolfpacker Show. We will be back on Sunday to recap everything that happened in this contest. And between now and then, we're going to have so much stuff up on the wolfpacker.com, and I encourage you all to go check it out. And, give it, after you finish listening, give us a read over there. I'm going to plug Noah's awesome story on Dave Doran's career at Northern Illinois. He talked to athletic directors, coaches, everybody that you could possibly imagine about Dave Doran's rise through the coaching world. Thought it was a really good read. You can go find that on the wolfpacker.com, in addition to everything that we've mentioned throughout this show. All right. Thanks again, folks. We will talk to you on Sunday, and see you soon.